Welcome Trinidad and Tobago to our News 4 report, a product of the Government Information Services Limited and the Ministry of Communications. I'm Nicola Barito. Let's take a look at the headlines. "500 persons become homeowners as the HDC distributes keys to persons who applied over 30 years ago. The Ministry of the People and Social Development and the Ministry of Transport launch an historic mobile service for the elderly and disabled called Ildamo. From gold to diamond, a diamond structure in service delivery, an initiative of the Ministry of Public Administration. Thank you for joining us. 500 persons became homeowners as the HDC distributed keys to persons who applied over 30 years ago. Housing Minister Dr. The Honorable Rudal Munilal says this was the start of a distribution process that will see many more keys delivered before year's end.
500 citizens will be opening the door to their new home come this Christmas. This as the Housing Development Corporation delivered homes to persons who applied over 30 years ago. Minister of Housing Dr. Rudal Munilal says while there were over 159,000 HDC applicants, steps were being taken to reduce that number in the coming weeks.
Today, I say to all of you, welcome home. We will continue with our allocation process every single day. We will continue every single day to ensure that hundreds more are accommodated before Christmas and before the New Year. Hundreds more before Christmas and the New Year. So if you are not called and you are not here this evening, rest assured that you are not forgotten. Rest assured that the umbrella of compassion will also cover you, and we will process and we will allocate for the rest of this year and into the new year to meet this demand and this need.
To some it was a wait overdue, but nevertheless could not hide the joy of receiving their own home. To Patricia Lane, who applied for a home in 1974, she remains grateful for receiving keys to a place to call her own.
They tell me we will call you in 2 weeks' time, and they really did. Wow. They really did call.
Well, after waiting over 30 years,
was really my time. The Lord said, "Pa, this is your time now."
Oh, well
so
done.
I'm very thankful, very thankful.
Minister Munilal says over 600 units were delivered, while construction of approximately 6,000 new houses had commenced despite budget constraints.
Low-cost housing or housing for low income does not mean unattractive housing. It does not mean housing without thought for the environment. It certainly must not mean housing of a low and poor quality. Ladies and gentlemen, we are told that new housing units under construction at Union Hall and at Egypt in Chaguanas are the most beautiful houses ever built by the public sector in Trinidad and Tobago. The HDC has delivered 3,600 units for fiscal year 2011-2012 from a budget of $742 million and has embarked on several new projects amounting to an unprecedented 6,000 new housing starts in South, Central, East and Tobago, representing an investment of over $5 billion in state housing.
HDC Managing Director Jolene John describes the distribution as an indication of the outlook of future communities.
The commitment of the HDC is to ensure that the communities are consistently kept at the highest standards, i.e. buildings, infrastructure, environment, etc., and thereafter work with the community to secure the highest quality of life, which includes the responsibility of being your neighbor's keeper. This principle of looking out for each other is alive and well at the HDC, and although I'm fully aware that we do not always meet your expectations, I affirm today that we truly strive each and every day to develop and implement creative systems to aid our delivery of an enhanced service to you. You have the commitment of this Managing Director who leads from in front and never asks of an employee what I will not do myself.
The new homeowners were reminded that while a home comes with a sense of responsibility, keeping their surroundings clean and secure were all part of home ownership. Kimberly Ramkalawan, News 4.
Government has signed an agreement with several civil society groups regarding the Sir Solomon Hochoy Highway Extension project. The government hopes the agreement will ensure all concerns raised by the groups will now be addressed. Minister of Works, the Honorable Emmanuel George, announced the three-point agreement.
Members of the Trinidad and Tobago Transparency Institute, the Joint Consultative Council, Women Working for Social Progress, and the Federation of Independent Trade Unions and NGOs will all have their concerns over the Sir Solomon Hochoy Highway Extension project addressed. This after the groups met with Environment and Water Resources Minister Ganga Singh, Works and Infrastructure Minister Emmanuel George, Minister of State in the Ministry of Works and Infrastructure Stacey Roopnarine, and President of the National Infrastructural Development Company Dr. Carsten Charles. The parties engaged in a 4-hour-long meeting, which Minister George describes as very fruitful in pointing the way forward. The agreement focuses on the much-debated Debe to Mondesir section of the highway project. Explaining the tenets of the agreement, Minister George says he hopes this will lead to the project moving forward and a general acceptance by the project's critics.
1. The National Infrastructure Development Company Limited, NIDCO, undertook to make available to the JCC all the relevant documentation in its possession on the project in respect of the Debe to Mondesir segment of the highway extension. 2. The JCC undertook to examine all the documentation of the project provided by NIDCO and all other relevant documentation and to produce a report within 60 days from today's date to NIDCO for its consideration and its publication thereafter. 3. Work will continue on the sites of the highway released to the contractor.
Work has not yet commenced on the Debe to Mondesir segment of the highway extension project, as other works are still ongoing. All documentation concerning that segment of the highway extension has now officially been handed over to the JCC. The JCC's report is due to NIDCO on February 3, 2013. Gregory McBurney, News 4.
News 4 continues after the break. Stay with us. The Ministry of the People and Social Development and the Ministry of Transport came together to launch a historic mobile service for the elderly and disabled called Eldamo. The launch included the unveiling of the Eldamo buses for the elderly and differently abled that have been assigned to Trinidad.
The Elderly and Differently Abled Mobile Shuttle Service, Eldamo, is a nationwide bus service earmarked for the aged and persons with disabilities. Speaking at the launch of Eldamo, Minister of Transport, the Honorable Chandresh Sharma, says the coming together of the elderly and differently abled in Trinidad and Tobago is a positive sign for the development of the country. He also took time to acknowledge and commend the services offered by Eldamo.
So someone, somewhere, whether local, visiting, or residing elsewhere, saw this at work in another city and brought it to the attention of someone. And here it is being processed. That invitation continues.
Minister Sharma says the Public Transportation Services Corporation has already received a number of buses which will be equipped to transport persons with physical disabilities.
As announced in the budget, in keeping with the global concern to go green, we are in the process of obtaining 100 buses CNG outfitted. In addition to that, we are exploring outfitting our existing fleet CNG, and we'll extend that. Active consideration is being given to the maxi taxis.
Also speaking at the launch was the Minister of the People and Social Development, Dr. the Honorable Glenn Ramadasing, who says the buses will be monitored by every regional corporation.
We have 14 regional corporations. 2 of the buses are in Tobago, that's 16. And the rest can be used by the paratransit unit. So this is the whole difference with what has happened today, and I had to underscore that.
Having celebrated International Day of Persons with Disabilities, he says, the ministry is honored to give persons the opportunity to regain a certain amount of freedom through the use of the buses.
We say in the People's Partnership Manifesto that our commitment is to bring back the differently abled as equal partners in the society. That is not an overnight occasion. And it is something that will take time.
The minister says 24 buses are being purchased by the Public Transport Service Corporation, PTSC, at an estimated cost of $19.5 million to facilitate the service. In collaboration with ministerial colleagues and, in particular, the Ministry of Works and Transport, he says, they were able to include the differently abled in this new concept and decided to call it ELDAMO, which is the Elderly and Differently Able Mobile Shuttle Service. ELDAMO will be handled in conjunction with the Ministry of Local Government, as community empowerment will be the best way to manage the service. Joseph Lopez, News 4.
Now, ELDAMO does not just exist in Trinidad. Disabled persons in Tobago now have 2 buses specially designed to cater for their transportation needs. Social Development Minister Dr. the Honorable Glenn Ramadasing launching the service says it's a pilot project that will run for 6 months, during which the ministry will work out any kinks in the system to make the service smoother.
Disabled persons in Tobago now have transport catering directly to their needs, as 2 specially designed buses were handed over to the Sister Isle by the Ministry of the People and Social Development. The buses were launched in Scarborough by Dr. Glenn Ramadasing, Minister of the People and Social Development, who says the buses were introduced as part of a pilot project for the next 6 months to ensure that any issues in the delivery of the service are ironed out.
The first 6 months will be a pilot to build capacity for a call-in service. Right. And also to ensure that they are at the extremities of the river. That's the 2 main things. And then the second step will be also to procure more buses, because 2 may not be sufficient to do that. And to look at the whole management system and give recommendations to Cabinet as to how the pilot is run.
Minority Leader of the THA, Ashworth Jack, describes the handing over of the buses as a step towards ensuring equality for all.
The buses for our elderly and for our physically challenged persons are available in Tobago first, even before they are available in Trinidad on a large scale. It's testimony to the fact that we will not be treated as second-class citizens.
The aim is to provide free transportation to disabled persons while ensuring a better quality of life. Jason Clark was the first person to ride the bus in Tobago and welcomed the service.
One of the main things for us as challenged individuals, differently able, so that you can move around. I just want to thank the ministry and hope that the service would be, well, we've been calling for it to be formalized with the 2 smaller buses in Tobago, but those buses was mainly, would mainly carry people to the hospital and clinic, but I'm seeing here that this bus would take us when we want to go to our meetings, we want to go to the mall and want to go. You see, and those buses won't operate on weekends too, so I guess that would be worked out. Of course. Have dedicated drivers, have an assistant on the bus.
The buses will be based at a PTSC compound in Scarborough, Tobago. Kimberly Ram-Calawan, News 4.
When we come back, the Caribbean Cup 2012 finals in Antigua and Barbuda. Stay with us. The final 20-man squad, which will contest the upcoming 2012 Caribbean Cup Finals in Antigua and Barbuda, was finalized and announced on Monday by the Trinidad and Tobago Football Federation's technical staff. The squad includes 4 overseas-based players and 16 home-based players and will be captained by W Connection goalkeeper Jan Michael Williams. Joint head coaches Hudson Charles and Jamal Shabazz will conduct a final training session on Tuesday at the Marvin Lee Stadium before the team heads off to Wadadli, St. John's, Antigua on Wednesday morning ahead of the opening game of the tournament on Friday against Haiti at the Antigua Recreation Grounds. The full team is Jan Michael Williams, Marvin Phillips, Carlisle Mitchell, Aubrey David, Sion Power, Jovan Jones, Curtis Gonzalez, Kareem Moses, Daniel Cyrus, Kevin Molyneux, Houghton Hector, Leston Peltier, Kevin Carter, Keon Edwards, Denzel Theobald, Atola Guerra, Willis Plaza, Richard Roy, Devon Josling and Jamal Gay. The 4 semi-finalists of the tournament will qualify for the CONCACAF Gold Cup, which is slated for July 2013. The 2012 champions of the Caribbean Cup will receive a grand prize of US $100,000. The runners-up will take home US $75,000, with third and second places taking away US $50,000 and US $30,000 respectively. Trinidad and Tobago has won the regional title on 8 occasions, more than any other country. Jamaica, the defending champions and only surviving country in the 2014 World Cup qualifying race, have won it 5 times. Martinique and Haiti have each won the tournament once. Jamaica won the last 2 editions and 3 of the last 4. News 4 continues after this. Members of the public have been made more knowledgeable about HIV and AIDS by the Northwest Regional Health Authority. The authority held a day of enlightenment in commemoration of World AIDS Day 2012.
HIV/AIDS is a stark reality in Trinidad and Tobago, and the world for that matter. The virus has wiped out what is the equivalent of Trinidad and Tobago's entire population more than 15 times over the past 30 years. The World Health Organization reports that there are over 34 million persons living with HIV today. Many of these persons face discrimination and or death as a result of their illness. This has led to the World AIDS Day theme for this year getting to 0. 0 new HIV infections, 0 AIDS-related deaths, and 0 discrimination. CEO of the NWRHA, Mrs. Judith Baliram Ramutar, says her organization has been doing what it can to ensure the aims of the theme are met. She advises persons to get tested at one of the established testing sites or at a health center which offers the service.
We have been addressing the needs of the population with respect to HIV, AIDS in terms of early detection via screening, education, and prevention at risk behaviors, and giving assistance to persons living with HIV and AIDS, effectively collaborating with the public and private entities to provide screening and workshops throughout the year. Presently, there are 3 established testing sites which offer testing 5 days a week, namely at our San Juan, George Street, and Pitti Valley health centers. Additionally, there are 6 roving testing sites where tests is conducted at least once per week at Barataria, Aranjuez, El Socorro, Mova, Maraval, Carnage, Woodbrook, and Diego Martin health centers.
A medical volunteer speaking at the event reminds parents that it is their responsibility to inform their children of the dangers of unprotected sex. He says the rate of infection of young persons, and young women in particular, makes safe sex discussions a must between parents and children.
2010 and 2011, at the Medical Research Center, there were 50 new cases per month of young people between the ages of 14 and 24. 76% were females. The parents, you are the one responsible for your children, not the government, not the schools, not the politics, not the churches, but you are responsible for your children.
Gregory McBurney, News 4.
From gold to diamond, a diamond structure in service delivery, an initiative of the Ministry of Public Administration, development of the public services to meet the needs of citizens. We tell you more.
It's a step in the right direction in respect to improving the relationship between the customer, which is the ordinary citizen, the public servants themselves, and the idea of getting service delivery up to a standard.
I just came from Ministry of Legal Affairs, and I think so. I mean, we have a lot of work still to do, but it is a vast improvement as of maybe like say 4 or 5 years ago.
Service delivery has been improving. As anything else, it's about continuous improvement, continuous learning, and we all work diligently to improve the service delivery and service excellence with the public.
We are improving, and I think by the looks of it, what I'm seeing from all the sections in the public service, we are, meaning the public service, I'm representing the public service in a whole, we are moving towards improvement.
Well, we must understand transformation has been taking place since, we became independent from the civil service today. What has really happened is that transformation has not really kept pace with the expectations of citizens. However, over the last year, we have put a lot in foundation work in terms of how we develop a public service to meet citizens' needs, and especially some of the emerging challenges of the 21st century as we move towards what is called a citizen-centric public service.
Our educated public is a good public to deal with.
Absolutely. If we continue the way we are, so people-centric, definitely.
Yes. I know from the San Fernando Hospital there because I'm not feeling well, and I went down to the registration department and I saw the doctor there in charge, and she attended me very well. I was even given something to get a CT scan on the brain.
Service for all. That's the only way I can say.
First of all, we have to restructure the public service. So we have designed a new architecture, what we term as the 21st century architecture for the public service. And what has happened really is that, the public service itself was structured like a triangle, very, very bottom heavy. What we have, the new architecture, would look very much like a diamond, very narrow at the bottom, because all the clerical streams will be collapsed into something called a management support office stream. As we move up the public service, you will find at the widening, at the center of the diamond, there will be more opportunities for professionals, really representative of the structure of Trinidad and Tobago today. What it allows us to do is that there will be devolution of decision making, devolution of power, so that people will be able to take decisions, and therefore we will have more timely decision making. One of the biggest criticisms of the public service is bureaucracy, the bureaucratic procedures and processes. And by ensuring that we empower people right down to the bottom of the public service, we will remove a high percentage of bureaucracy in the public service.
It has a lot more that can be done.
There might be little pockets of improvement needed, but I do think overall that the service has improved by and large in each of the sections.
We also need to change the mindset of public officers to get them to appreciate that more is expected of them.
You have dedicated public officers, but there is room for improvement in terms of using information technology, looking how we can re-engineer the processes in order to make it more efficient and to have it aligned in terms of efficiency and effectiveness in delivery.
By and large, from what I see in terms of the officers that I come into contact with, the people who I interact with from different ministries, I say yes, we are growing and growing fast.
Of this edition of our News 4 report, a product of the Government Information Services Limited and the Ministry of Communications. I'm Nicola Barreto. Thank you for joining us.